We also take time to invite Maria Carolina Quintana Noriega to the podium.
Thank you very much for your patience. We will continue with the conference with the next presentation called Geographic Information for Inclusive Mobility in Liveable Cities by Dr. Mir Abolfazl Mostafavi. Mir Abolfazl Mostafavi is a full professor at the Department of Geomantic Science at Université Laval and is a member of the Center for Geospatial Data and Intelligence, as well as the Center for Interdisciplinary Research in Rehabilitation and Social Participation. He holds a Canada Research Chair in Sensible Cities for Empowered Mobility. His research interests focus on geospatial theories, methods, and technologies to study complex human-environment-technology interactions, following an ecosystem approach by research team in the Liveable Cities Lab. Contributes to 1. The design and development of smart and inclusive environments using advanced geospatial methods and technologies, sensor networks, the Internet of Things, digital twins, and geospatial artificial intelligence. The improved understanding of human interactions with their environment in an ecosystem approach, spatial cognition, interactional modeling, and the design and development of assistive navigation technologies. Professor Mostafavi has led numerous interdisciplinary research projects in national and international levels. He has served as an editor-in-chief of Geomatica, the journal of the Canadian Institute of Geomatics from 2017 to 2022, and as the president of the CIG from 2021 to 2023. He currently serves as a co-chair of a working group on digital twins for mobility and navigation of the International Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. Please, let's give him a round of applause. You may start, Doctor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming for this presentation. I'm honored to be here to present a part of our research activities at Université Laval. And I want to first also thank you for this invitation, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me for this talk. So my presentation would be focused on accessible cities and how we can, with our technology, geospatial technologies, contribute to development of more accessible cities. So the topic is geographic information for inclusive mobility in livable cities. So first of all, I will with this one advanced. Okay, so just to show how the topic that we are addressing is challenging for our societies, either in Canada or in international. According to the World Health Organization, there are more than 1 billion people who suffer from one or more types of disabilities. This is, in Canada, it's representing more than 22% of the population, about 6 million or more than 6 million. And in Quebec province, it's more than 1 million people. So for the whole people, and we know that we are in a context of aging population in many countries. So the whole challenge is that how we can help these people to get around, to continue live actively in the society and participate in different activities. I'm sorry. So what is the problem? If we look at the urban planning, the way our cities are developed, it is more with the perception of a standard, capable person who would use our infrastructure, who would use our pedestrian networks and transportation system for their daily mobility to participate in different activities. In such environment, for sure, the vulnerable people are more restrained and constrained in their activities, and they are very limited in their social participation. So here, just to give the context and more from the person themselves, I have a short video clip, and but it is in French, but I will try to explain a bit on that. So can you activate it? So this
Aujourd'hui, on est à
context is
Québec,
Quebec City.
dans le quartier Saint-Roch, là, en Basse-Ville de Québec. Moi, c'est Sébastien Dion, j'ai 43 ans. Je suis né avec une paralysie cérébrale. À l'extérieur, en tout cas, il faut être motorisé. Environ 50% des commerces qui sont pas accessibles. Puis moi, ben, vu que je suis en voiture motorisée, ben, ça ne me prend pas grand-chose là, pour que ça devienne inaccessible. Là. Il s'agit seulement d'une marche là, pour dire que je peux pas rentrer. Là. Contrairement à peut-être une personne en moto manuelle que lui, une marche peut peut-être gérer ça ou se faire aider pour monter. Moi, même une marche, c'est pas possible.
Nous rencontrons Mir Abolfazl Mostafavi, professeur titulaire au département.
So just briefly to say that this person explaining that more than 50% of places that he wants to go for his activities, for restaurants or meet people, they are not accessible in Quebec City, where we are now to work hard on accessibility issues. And you saw a bit of example of situation, for example, presence of ice and also snow. That was the start of the almost November, so it could be worse during the winter. So a lot of constraints exist that limits the mobility of these persons and also their security. So in my lab, we are trying to address these kind of situations. So recently, I have been awarded by a Canada chair on sensible cities for empowered mobility, where we are trying to use geospatial technologies or advances in our field to help to create smart environments or sensible environments or cities, which has both meaning in terms of acquiring data by sensing and using novel technologies. As this morning we saw drones and LiDAR or imagery, so we can provide the necessary data for development of these applications. And sensible in terms of being sensible towards the needs of population and considering their diversity in capabilities. So how we can really push our cities to be more inclusive in the context where we are talking about advance of geospatial technologies, artificial intelligence, and with reference to Professor Claremont this morning. For sure, we are also trying to show our cities as sustainable cities. So the part of the research that we are conducting, for sure, by helping these most vulnerable people, considers to help to advance our cities in terms of getting more sustainable, by creating sustainable city and communities, peace and justice, bringing the equality and equity so that people can have the same equal access to the services, and especially in mobility, we are most focused in our research. So this includes education, question of poverty, how these people can go work, and so they are almost in the same situation than other members of the society. So the research chair that I'm conducting, that I'm leading with my team, has three broad research areas. The first one, for sure, is more, I would say, engineering part of being interested to generating a smart environment in the sense of adding technologies where it is necessary. For instance, when we are talking about the navigation in an indoor environment, for example, you don't have access to GPS, how we can make it more smart in terms of detecting people and trying to give them the relevant information that they need in their navigation. The second part of or area of the research that we conduct is more putting the person in that environment, in such an environment where technology and physical environment is present. So how people interact in such conditions with the environment, either social, technological, or physical environment. And the last area of research is more focused on how we can develop new technologies, especially assistive technologies, so that we can empower these people in terms of their mobility and daily activities. So for sure, this research has an ecosystem where we are related to several research centers, institutes, from not only from engineering part in terms of artificial intelligence or geomatics, but also we are connected to the rehabilitation centers, hospitals, and so we try to keep both parts together, so to innovate in a multidisciplinary and multi-sectorial research environment. I'm not alone in that lab. There are a lot of students who are helping us in conducting research with us. For sure, they are coming from different background, from geomatics, from urban planning, even from social science or health science, so they can conduct research together and learn together in our lab. So just a note to students, if any person who is interested, maybe we can for sure try to see what options we can offer. So those research for sure needs infrastructure. So in Canada, we have a organization called Foundation for Innovation that provides funding for buying research equipment. So for this chair, we had already benefited from a fund to allow us to have the necessary equipment. The idea, pushing research so we can really reduce this gap between the way our environment is designed and the way people experience it in their daily activities, so we can bridge the gap that exists. So I passed through these technologies. For sure, there are sensors, different sensors, virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on. And the partners, for sure, we have public and private partners and also funding organizations around us. So based on this, I will try to present one of, let's say, a set of projects that we had conducted since a few years on development of a new technology that is a kind of parallel to, we can make parallel to navigation technologies like Google Maps, and try to see how we can adapt the same thing to a person who with a specific capacity that maybe the itinerary that provides, it's more based on shortest path, more efficient path, but for that person it's impossible to to be mobile on that. Consider all the pedestrian network that you see around this university and in the city of Mexico. So it can gives you an idea. Anytime you enter to a restaurant or you come to university, how a person on wheelchair or a blind person could do the same thing as you, so that it can conduct his studies or go and to do leisure. The whole idea of research that we conduct is based on a theoretical framework that is equivalent to the human development model. Especially for handicaps, it is called disability creation model. So it is not just for people with handicap, but for the whole humanity. We can consider that there are 3 boxes. One, personal factors. What is my capacity? What is my organic development? I'm tall, I'm small. Or our identities. Am I a person who can easily ask questions or help? For example, I am in wheelchair. Can I get on a bus? And for that, can I ask easily help to others or not? Or the other type of questions that are related to our characteristics and identity. For the environment, it is not related just to the way our pedestrian network is done. It included the physical aspect, but we have also the social aspect. There are decisions, there are rules and norms that are created in a more higher level. So how those are impacted with the people who decide for the society. So we have social environment, physical environment, and technological environment with which we enter in interaction. So any action, life habits that we want to do, it's a result of between these 2 big boxes. So in that sense, our mobility or mobility of a person on wheelchair is dependent on how these interactions be based on his capacities and also how the environment is made so that the mobility is possible or not. And in that sense, we bring geospatial technologies to improve this interaction. For sure, our environment is very complex. It is dynamic. It has very varying conditions in terms of meteorological conditions or even construction sites or the happenings that could be maybe predictable, but some of those are accidental, and so that complicates our daily plannings and mobility plannings. So it is the same and more complex for people who are vulnerable in our cities. So in that sense, we try to propose a navigation technologies that is personalized. How I can reflect, communicate my capacity to the application, and try to get the itineraries based on the situation in the environment and my own environment. So when we talk about cognitive design, it is for sure to specify our requirements for the development by talking specifically to those people with specific profiles so that we can give them the right solution. So that means a modeling of knowledge, structured or not. So ontologies have been there around for many years in GIS science, still useful for works where we want to have a global idea of what type of knowledge we need and how we can define all those uncertainties in the environment. For sure there will be present, and then how we can go and look for data for the factors that we need, either for the environment or the person, for the specific life habit that we want to conduct. The first remark that we had was that there was a gap between the way social scientists have developed their vision of environment and environmental factors with respect to what geometricians, geographers, and computer scientists model the space. So we saw that really there is a big gap, and there was the necessity of trying to create semantic link between those knowledge bases so that we could actually go forward with acquiring the necessary data. In Quebec City, there was, for the first step, we had selected a small district, which is called Quartier Saint-Roch, where the guy was actually showing in the video clip. And the result of surveying during one summer with students who weren't specialists in geomatics, they were more from health sciences. So they did almost manually the location of the whole inconformality of the factors that could be a kind of obstacle for mobility of people. So we could identify 5,000 of those for this small district. So for sure, scaling this at the scale of Quebec City or Montreal or Mexico City, it's a huge challenge. So that's why later I will present a bit example of research that we are doing by AI to see how we can actually scale this data acquisition. There are other challenges actually in terms of, yes, there are open data, but they are limited in terms of level of details, accuracy. We have, for example, access maybe to crowdsourcing. Again, it's a kind of quality issue. Sensors are costly, how we can make sure that we are continuous information on the environment, and also the location is fundamental for navigation. So in some cases, even in outdoors, in city centers, we have problems with GPS signals. So the challenge is getting the right information. For example, quality information on the quality of pedestrian network. Nobody gives that in the cities. So, for example, there were creative small companies that were putting a sensor in terms of vibration on a bicycle, and so they were going through all the streets to register that, vibrations, to give an idea of the quality of the surface on the pedestrian networks. Looking for information from crowdsourcing is an interesting source, but being alert of the quality of that, for sure, it's important. LiDAR data, airborne LiDAR data, now it is getting better and better with drone technology. However, still problems for accessibility assessment because we want to see the facades of buildings, interiors of stores, shops, restaurants. So this is a bit complex with airborne data. So we are more in now in the step of using terrestrial LiDAR data as one of the sources, and images also included in that. So for smaller projects, we actually collaborated with some companies that could put what they called it in French, photo intelligent. So it's a kind of set of sensors, cameras, so that gives opportunity to the researchers to conduct research on specific intersection to get continuous data, conduct analysis on behavior of people, how they cross, and also using experiments with people with GPS to see, for example, a blind person, how long does it take to cross the street, or an elderly people, so how we can adapt, get it more intelligent, our installations in the intersections. Weather condition in Quebec, again, it's a very challenging issue for accessibility assessment and informing people on terms of how their mobility can be impacted. So that was for physical environment. For sure, social environment is a domain of research, ongoing research. There are not a lot of works on that level of considering that if you want to go in a bus, how the behavior of the conductor of the bus could affect that you are willing to take the bus again or not. Or even people who see a wheelchair user as an obstacle automatically in the middle of a bus. So this perception of people, how can encourage or limit people, belongs to our more social factors that affect, and there is, as I said, ongoing research on that. The other thing is the interactions, how we can measure it. There are different methodologies, qualitative methodologies, where we interview people or we send questionnaires, online questionnaires, to get the perception of people on a specific area or their challenges in terms of mobility in the city. And but other ways of using technology is, for example, benefiting from a eye tracking technology that can help us to analyze the visual behavior of the person. For sure, the data is very challenging to analyze in terms of, for example, saccades or fixations, because the only reason where we look somewhere, it's not just mobility, it could be many reasons. So it is difficult to clearly identify the intention of the person, if the person looking for a landmark or information for his navigation or completely other things. But at least it can, in some cases, gives us some clues what is important in the environment for the mobility or security of the person. This is an example of, can you activate the so here just to say that the person is in a wheelchair and there's an eye tracking on the eyes, and so we can see what is looking, or the little focus of the person, and try to see how the intention of these people are more on their mobility and security than actually enjoying the mobility environment. So that is another kind of findings that we can have, and we can say how we can liberate these people from those extra attention that they should have on the environment. This is a person who is on wheelchair, but we have blind people who, in some literature, say that more than 80% of their attention is to their steps when they are in the real environment. So it's a huge challenge to say how our technologies can actually give them some support in their mobility. So mainly, we are conducting with a student, PhD student, some experiments, for example, to understand to which extent navigation technologies are adapted to their usage and how we can modify and adapt those technologies to their use. So the results of this part of analysis of human implication in the environment was that we could kind of define a profile. So that is for personalizing the application, how we can personalize the itinerary of the person. For example, the first question, it's in French, but it is about slope. What is the confidence, level of the confidence that the person has to navigate in a specific area with a given slope? So we measure the slope as a geographer or geomatician, but the way that specific part is used for navigation is different from a person to that person to another person. So we try to personalize this. So in this application, for example, the time or the level of confidence that it takes for a person to cross an intersection if there is no traffic light, because having traffic lights ensure people that they will have 30 seconds or 25 seconds, but not having that, it puts them in danger in terms of possible accidents. So this is a kind of interface for allowing people to define their own profile for once. And then we apply it to a database from the city where we have already prepared the data on slopes, on intersections, and all the things that we mentioned here. However, as I said, our challenges was to scale it to the city level. For sure, we are not yet there, but the first experiments since last 6 months on LiDAR and image data allowed us to work on the whole data from a city which is about 50,000, if I'm not wrong. It is called Victoriaville in Quebec province. And we tried to apply new approaches from deep learning that could be trained on geospatial data, either LiDAR or image or both, and try to fit it to our environment. First experiment was a kind of finding a benchmark, which was in Paris, Paris-Lille, and to see if we can train it on that benchmark and then bring it, apply it to Quebec City dataset. We had some success, but there were differences between the way the urban planning was there and in Quebec City. So the success wasn't very high in some features that we were looking for mobility. So here the students tried to create their own benchmark, just to give you an idea of the work that we needed to do. Can you activate it, please? So this is a MSc student with a PhD student who collaborates. So this is terrestrial LiDAR. So we have access to very high resolution data from the street, and we can see specific features for mobility of wheelchair user. For example, those ramps or steps or other arrangement that might exist in front of stores and buildings, and try to indicate that is it accessible or not. So by using this benchmark, we try to train our models. So maybe we can stop it, as we don't have much time. So that gives an idea of training. So from that data, this is the model that was used. What we noticed that there were diversity of presence of features in the city. For example, you might have thousands of doors, so we can maybe detect them and segment them and use them in our activities. But for example, for training those models to extract ramps, it wasn't very successful because we didn't have enough examples. So it was necessary to have other types of approaches. So this is a kind of an example of what we could segment in front of a house. So this is the city level only for data extractions, yes. Pedestrian network extraction that is conducted overall city in 1 hour. So it's a kind of, city is interested to update its network. So it's a work that value for them. But again, we will continue to explore semi-supervised deep learning approaches for those elements for which we don't have enough learning data. So that is a kind of data assessment. So mobilistic application is in line now, and it has a component that is for navigation mode. I had planned to do a demo, but I don't have time, so I will pass. The system also can be used as a decision-making system for people in the municipalities because it can highlight, if we aggregate the information from people, so we can actually get an idea of where the most critical problems in city in terms of accessibility, and we can plan or prioritize for improving that part. So this is an idea of the interface. So my ongoing projects on that, just very short, we are trying here to consider the multimodal mobility, so accessibility of pedestrian networks plus bus network and so on. Another project, for sure, we are trying to adapt instructions when we don't use our visual interface, how we can instruct people with disabilities with adapted instructions, a PhD project. Another PhD project in indoor navigation, how we can actually evaluate the accessibility of indoor environments. And finally, there is an MSc project on detours and accessible detours, because sometimes they are mentioning that this part of the pedestrian network is closed, but not any guidance to people where could be accessible and where people can go through. Even for us, sometimes it's difficult. So a few final remarks. For sure, new technologies provide opportunities to people with disabilities in their mobility, especially with geospatial technologies and AI. Acquiring, analyzing, and of spatial data is challenging, as you saw in my remarks in previous slides. We are trying to explore sensors and low-cost sensors so that we can kind of complement the information that we need, especially for dynamic aspect, and trying to see how we can bring it in city scale, as the information is continuously changing, and municipalities, they have very limited resources to conduct data acquisition each year or every month. So bringing AI in support could help us to really identify changes in the environment and conduct specific actions on those parts. Thank you very much for your attention. The demo is available for those who want to see, so it will be a pleasure to do it for you if you are interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mir, for your excellent presentation. So we are now going to pass to the question section. Does anyone have a question? Right over there, please.
Good morning. My question is, to make a city, a smart city, we need the streets and the avenues adapt. What could we as a society pressure the government to make this issue a priority?
For making megacities accessible, or am I understood the question well in terms of
to make a smart city, or how can pressure the government to adapt streets and avenues for mobility?
For sure, I would say there's not an easy answer to the question. We are researchers, for sure. When we meet people with disabilities, even them, they are kind of considering that we are working for municipalities and they are asking specific things to do in terms of getting accessible some part of the pedestrian. But for sure, our role is providing information to the authorities and work on scenarios that can help them to understand the challenges that vulnerable people live with. Because we should, kind of as an authority or responsible for actions in the city, understand the value of this thing. For a long time, statistical decision-making tools was there for, okay, this problem touches many people, and so we prioritize that. That's true, that should be there. But however, a human is a human being. He should be treated as the others, and they have rights. What we say, and UN has actually published a kind of agreement and ask other countries to really work on that is to say that these people have the same rights. So it's a question of human rights, not a question of a statistic. So our mission overall as academic and also industry is to use or create tools that helps to authorities to better understand the importance of the issue and help to improve gradually the city.
Thank you. Is there another question? Right over here with Christoph, please.
Thank you, Mir, for this inspiring talk. I have a question regarding the last bullet point about dynamic 3D digital twin. My good child recently said, well, a digital twin should bring something additional in relation with the real world. So my question is, and my thoughts are, what kind of additional functions we don't have in the real world a dynamic 3D digital twin should provide, especially in the context of inclusive mobility, and what kind of research question this should bring to our community?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question, Christoph. Actually, what we, at this time, we are emphasizing on the role of the digital twins is that for many years, we have developed, for example, geographic information systems, databases, which are periodically put in, updated on what the information is available. However, digital twins, what distinguishes at first scale, is access to this sensing capacity. So we can, almost online, we can get, theoretically, because it takes in a big infrastructure so that we are able to be aware of any change in the environment. Mike Batty, in his recent paper, was mentioning that never will be a real digital twins in the sense that it is defined because we are always have a, let's say, gap between the process time. And so those are, maybe with AI, could be some possibilities in that sense. But however, even for sensing biometric information or putting the person in a condition that is we allow him to decide the right thing for his mobility in the city, maybe that would be the extra things for now what could be possible. And for sure, that is not just for people who want to walk on the sidewalk, but as I mentioned, the aggregation of the information that we can get on the mobility in the city. I had participated in a groundbreaking presentation from MIT where they could visualize the data from smartphone of people who were connected in the morning, and in city scale how the mobility was actually conducted and during the day. So it was very interesting to see how, if we are connected to every person information, if there are other issues with that, but it helps for decision makers and authorities to really make a real change in the way our cities, especially the mega cities, are working now in terms of mobility. You see, even here in 2 days, we see how it is complex to move in different hours in the city, and so having information would be maybe the start of the solution for that.
I have a quick follow-up.
Sure.
I know the struggle with getting special data, and I attended a presentation about bicycles, and it was also shared that the data is very difficult to get.
Exactly.
You just mentioned mobility, and we know that Meta has done MOUs with many universities. Do you see, or perhaps it's happening and I'm not aware, that driverless cars, the power of their computers and sensors to be a source for information, at least for the roads?
For sure, sharing those information, if those cars are connected to a kind of data center, and sharing the information on their just velocity of movement could be interesting for other drivers to, or even pedestrians to decide on how they can adjust their ways, their itineraries. So it's really a question of having right information, quality information. So for sure, as we are advancing in time and integration of new and miniature sensors in many things, so IoT, I would say, allows us to kind of getting access to those information. Now, for sure, there are challenges with these new technologies. For example, we share the same space of mobility, and in some sense, we are happy to have access. Even students, maybe you are using now scooters or other devices, modern devices. We see it in Montreal and Quebec, but more and more it creates other problems of conflictual things, and people actually feel more insecure because people are just moving around very fast, and the standards and regulations are kind of late. So that is another challenge with the new technologies, for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Mir. Unfortunately, we are short in time, so we won't have time for any more questions. If you wish to ask him, you can ask him at the coffee break. Also, as a thank for your participation, we would like to give you a little gift. Thank you so much, Dr. Mir.